I am pleased to introduce or kick off our next session called Metal Recycling and the Sustainability Equation. My name is Brandi Harleaux. I am the CEO of South Post Oak Recycling Center. We're a metal recycling and sustainability company headquartered out of Houston, servicing the Gulf Coast region and growing nationally. We handle most types of metals as well as some electronics. And I look forward to talking with you all today about sustainability. I think oftentimes it's not talked about in the context of investment recovery or asset recovery, even though I know some of the speakers yesterday and today wove it in. I'm hoping that today's presentation with the four of us will help continue to integrate the impact of sustainability in your asset recovery and surplus efforts there. After I go, Andrew will introduce himself, and the rest of the gentlemen will as well. I'm going to be starting us off here just kind of at the highest level. I believe that every one of us here on this panel is a part of a trade association called the Recycled Materials Association. And so I'm going to dovetail and talk about this for the first part is what is the perspective from the industry? What is our trade association's role in recycling, if you will, as well as what is some of the data that supports sustainability specifically as it relates to recycling. So look at this as a high level, and then each of us will go in a little bit further details. How does that sound? Okay, awesome. Again, high level, each of us are part of a trade association that was called ISRI, or the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries. It has since been renamed to REMA, the Recycled Materials Association. I bring this up is because I think it's important for you all to know that as recyclers, we're also a part of a trade association. It's a member organization of about 1,700 companies across the U.S. as well as 40 countries. So it's a global organization. It's based out of Washington, D.C. And REMA's focus, if you will, is to promote an economically sustainable and environmentally responsible recycling through networking, through advocacy, and through education. And so these are ways that as metal and material recyclers that support you, we stay abreast of what's going on across the country and across the globe. I think that the name, if you will, is important. The Recycled Materials Association is because the focus, I think, is on the same things that you care about. Our organization or the trade association that we're part of is focusing on being sustainable, helping to protect the planet. The second thing that the industry or the trade association is focused on is resilience, providing materials that can strengthen the economy. And then last but not least, the materials that you handle, your surplus, your assets, they are essential. They are essential part of the recycling loop and what makes essentially our everyday lives better. Now, I know the terminology sustainability or even the concept of it has been tossed around and there's various definitions, if you will, around it. But this is one that we work off of as members of the trade association. What is sustainability or how is it defined? It's defined as the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And if you're sitting there wondering, what does that mean? We're going to talk about what recycling or how your assets go through a circularity loop. If that didn't resonate with you, maybe the business value will resonate with you. Why should sustainability matter from a business perspective? Some of you have already connected these dots. Others are looking to continue to connect it. Business can be impacted through recycling or through your assets, through the financial performance. Your financial performance, either earnings or cost savings, can affect a few things. It affects water availability, sourcing, quality, food security, and extreme temperature changes affecting organizational premises, operations, supply chain, transport needs, and employee safety. All of this is tied to sustainability and your overarching business impact. A little bit about the economics, and I know a lot of you know that what you do is a part of sustainability in one way or another, but oftentimes we don't think about the economic impact. REMA did a 2024 economic impact study and found that the recycling industry alone accounted for more than $170 billion in contribution to the U.S. economy. That's a lot. The industry has also contributed over 600,000 jobs that we all up here touch directly or indirectly. $20.2 billion in exports are touched by us in the recycling industry, and 137 million metric tons of valuable commodities were processed on an annual basis, a lot of which you touch through your operations and through your surplus. One of the speakers yesterday talked about a circular economy, and I also wanted to kind of pull it together and talk about a circular economy and recycling, and how the two are integrated. If you look to probably your right there, you will see this circular loop, and I wanted to point out, circular economy refers to an economy that produces as little residual or waste as possible and requires little virgin material as possible. What do we mean by that? Each of the assets that you all touch, they are eventually melted down at some point and made into new material. We can use that material instead of extracting new material from the earth, i.e. virgin material, and that allows us to go through the entire loop. You can see at the top of this loop, it says that there's raw material, whether that be iron ore extracted from the earth or copper. Ideally, you all take your material, you decide, is it going to be disposed of? Is it going to be distributed somewhere? Are we going to repair it? Are we going to collect it? Is it going to go through the recycling loop, kind of what we touch and what you'll learn a little bit more about? And hopefully at the end of that cycle, there is very little waste that you're touching by then. I like to say this, and I think we all appreciate this, especially as I think more and more of us appreciate manufacturing here stateside, is that America's infrastructure relies very heavily on recycled materials. And this ranges from the cars that we drive to the roadway and bridges that we drive on, to the train stations or the train track rails, to airport infrastructure. Essentially, all of it is relying on recycled material. The last thing before I kind of show you something here is recycling, as you know, it is directly a part of our supply chains. The material that we touch and that goes through our facilities goes right back into the supply chains that we touch every day. One of the highlights that I like, and it's highlighted below, is that more than 70% of all recycled material processed in the United States is sold domestically, and it's a part of the domestic supply chain. Here's just one quick example, a video that REMA has produced that shows, in a very simplistic term, the life cycle of a car. How many of us have a vehicle of some sort? I think most of us. So it's a simple form, but I'll go ahead and show you this real quick.
A car's journey starts well before it rolls off the assembly line, before a dealer hands over the keys and a new owner drives away in it for the first time. It starts with a plastic bottle, an aluminum can, a broken washing machine, a steel beam from a demolished building, even other old cars. It starts with recycling, taking materials no longer of use in their current state and turning them into valuable feedstock for use in manufacturing. Each of the 986 million cars produced in the last decade started from this beginning. Our cars take us to see family, pick up food, get us to work, and create a lot of memories. So what happens when it is time to say goodbye to our cars? When it no longer runs consistently, or is too damaged, or just isn't wanted anymore? There was a time in the not-so-distant past, cars were simply abandoned, left on the side of the road or in a field, often in low-income and minority communities. Fortunately, thanks to recycling, this is no longer the case. Today, there are about 300 shredders across the U.S. that are designed to recycle cars in an environmentally responsible manner, processing each to recover commodity-grade recyclables. The 12 million cars recycled each year provide iron, steel, aluminum, plastics, and other feedstock that is sent to steel mills and manufacturers to make new products. This keeps our supply chain running, reduces our dependence on foreign countries for raw materials, and mitigates the need to destroy the environment by mining for virgin material. Through recycling, a car's journey can be told again and again. It will keep our supply chains running and increase American competitiveness. A car's journey will continue to create news stories long into the future. Learn more about how recycling is essential.
So it's a simple example, but I often think that we don't think about the life cycle of something like a vehicle. And so hopefully it helped kind of connect some dots. As I get ready to kind of wrap up the bigger picture, teeing up, in terms of sustainability, recycling reduces energy by 27 to 90% and greenhouse gas emissions by 35 to 95%, 96% compared to the use of primary materials. And we just talked about primary materials. If you look down this chart, something as simple as copper wire that many of you all touch is 3 from the bottom. By taking copper wire and melting it down as opposed to extracting new copper, you have about a 67% energy savings and a 66% greenhouse gas emission savings. So quite a significant impact of just using and actually handling your recycled material. I won't go through all of these environmental impacts of recycling because I think they all resonate with people differently here. But wherever you stand, you can probably pick 1 or 2 to see the impact. If you look at recycling's impact on air, the first one, it minimizes resource extractions that require fossil fuels. If you look at the impact on recycling of soil, it reduces soil damage by mining or mining new material. If you take something like the impact of recycling on water, it prevents landfill toxin leakage into water systems. And then last but not least, a biodiversity benefit would be it prevents habitat loss associated with mining and extracting raw materials. So if you hadn't thought about it as holistically, I think it's important to see the impact of what you all are doing. Like all businesses, relationships with employees, relationships with customers, as well as your communities are important. And as recyclers and in partnering with us, know that we directly have an impact on our employee safety, on job creation, on corporate philanthropy, on community engagement, and last but not least, policy in action. If there's one thing that I want you to take from this tee up at the beginning is that meeting material demand for a sustainable future, each and every one of us are part of that. And the material that you generate that comes through our facilities is a part of that. There is no sustainability or circularity without material recycling, and I firmly believe that. Thank you so much, and I will turn it over to Andrew next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew Dischino. I work at GLE Scrap Metal. I am going to be covering some current events going on in the scrap metal industry today. We have 11 locations across the United States, Florida, Michigan, and Kansas, 2 wire chopping facilities, and a sister e-scrap company. Tariff overview. So everyone knows how the tariffs affected the country, and it affected scrap pretty wildly. Over the last year, we saw a big arbitrage between the LME and COMEX, which made spreads, as most of you in the room probably know, pretty wide, and made the pricing seem pretty low comparative to where the market was. The Midwest transaction price is at an all-time high currently, which affects the price for domestic aluminum. It also makes it harder for exporters to buy aluminum products here. This current scrap demand is weak domestically, more so on the aluminum side, seeing wider spreads and expecting to see even wider spreads going into 2026 contracts. And there is possibility for rapid metal pricing fluctuation depending on what happens in the geopolitical world. There are a few new consumers coming online domestically here, which is good news for all of us in the room. Wieland is currently building a new mill, Arubis is building a new mill, and Aluminum Dynamics is building a new mill, all which will help hopefully increase demand domestically, make it a little easier to sell some scrap, and make pricing increase. A big problem right now in our industry is trucking theft. We are seeing rising incidents of theft across our industry. A lot of the times people are hacking into the trucking boards and rerouting shipments, or just sending in trucks, hoping somebody will load it. It's been a very big problem. If people in this room haven't experienced it yet, and I'm sure all the scrap yards in here have, it's going to become a bigger and bigger problem. I think you need to have really good best management practices, knowing who your vendors are, knowing who's coming to pick it up, knowing where the load's going, and making sure you're using reputable people. We're going to continue to see this happen a lot. At the bottom of the slide, I have scraptheftalert.com. So if you do have scrap stolen, you can report it there. It goes out, it's a free website, but it will go out to anyone that has it registered. It will give a description, who to contact if you find it and see it. And it does recover scrap. You see a lot of utilities on there. And you see, when loads get stolen from scrap yards. We are seeing a lot of advancements in technology. I know AI was talked about a lot yesterday, so I won't touch on it too much, but the sorting capabilities in our industry are only getting better and better. There'll be less need for manual sortation in the future. It's still a far way away, but from where it was when I started in the business to where it is today, it's very, very advanced. So you will see a lot of that start to advance and make it easier to sort material. Another big problem in our industry right now is lithium-ion fires from batteries. You are seeing a lot of fires at scrap yards. In Tampa, where we have a facility, there's been 6 fires in the last year, all at shredder facilities where Brandi just showed where cars go to get recycled. So everything pretty much today has a lithium-ion battery in it, from your washing machine to your refrigerator to your scooter. And when they get punctured and go into a pile, that picture is what happens. They are very, very difficult fires to put out, especially when they're a big pile of metal. There are some companies out there, Fire Over is one of them, that has systems where you can put thermal cameras up and it will watch your piles overnight, and it will deploy fire extinguisher on the pile to help mitigate the fire. So we're seeing a lot of scrap yards invite fire departments in to come up with some plans so they know when they enter your facility how to fight the fire and how to keep everyone safe. So that's becoming a larger issue. And so that is everything that I have today. Thank you all.
Hello, everybody. My name is Greg Tellier. I work for Alpert & Alpert Iron and Metal in Los Angeles. Alpert & Alpert has been around 97 years, so we have a 100-year anniversary coming up in just a few years. We're into our 4th generation of ownership. We have scrap yards in Los Angeles, Long Beach, Tijuana. We have a transfer yard in San Diego. We own a couple of aluminum smelters, one in Fontana, one in Adairsville, Georgia. We're getting ready to open a 3rd in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So we've been around for a little while. We're pretty well established, and we're going to be around for a while longer. Start with a simple model here. Supply chains are consumer driven. You start with the manufacturing, you've got the consumer, and you've got the recycler. You might say the recycler is the start of one supply chain as it goes to the manufacturer. You might say it's the end of another supply chain as it comes from the consumer. And you might say it's in the middle. You'd be right on all 3 counts. So the recycling industry is very important to the industry, as Brandi said. Someone once referred to recycling as above ground mining. I always thought that was a great analogy. Recyclers are probably the only vendors that pay you. Again, I work with a lot of demolition companies and utility companies, so a lot of long-term contracts, things like that. So very important to vet your recycling partner. You want to make sure of their business structure. You want to look at their safety record. You want to look at their regulatory compliance. You want to visit their facility. You want to see what kind of equipment they have, what kind of processing materials they have, what the trucks look like, what the property looks like. You want to know about their financial stability. They're going to be paying you. You want to make sure you're going to get paid. You want to look at their risk management, their philosophy towards risk, and their industry management experience. If they're down to your short list, you probably already know what their reputation is, but you want to vet that. You may start with a group of 10 recyclers as candidates, but narrow it down to 2 or 3, and you want to make sure you choose a recycler that has been around a long time with a good reputation. Here's a couple of simple examples. The people selling the material, the people generating the material, need to know what you're selling. These are 2 quick and easy examples. The first one is ACSR, which is aluminum conductor steel reinforced, right? Fun fact, all of the ACSR material are named after birds. This particular example is named after bluebird. It's 81% aluminum, 19% ferrous. The other one is number 2 ICW. It's number 2 because it has a little bit of polyethylene in the middle. It's not just the sheath and the copper. So again, it's very important to understand the difference on why something is number 1, number 2, and the differences in value. As recyclers, we need to know what we're buying. So in this case, the first example is an aluminum power core. Sure looks like copper, right? It's not, it's aluminum. So you kind of learn these things through experience. The other item is a refinery material. It's got a little bit of copper in it, it's got some stainless in it, it's got some steel to it. Very difficult to process. So it takes a little bit of effort, it takes a little bit of expense, but it's good to discuss these things between the generator and the processor to know exactly what you have, exactly what you're dealing with, and to understand the value. So toward that end, recyclers, most large recyclers, will have certain identification tools. In this case, it's a Niton. Essentially, this is X-ray equipment that will tell us the exact alloy material and the constituent elements that are in a particular alloy. I just used a simple example here. This has copper, zinc, and a little bit of ferrous. It's yellow brass. And the reason this particular example was important to us is that you can see the plate at the bottom. This was a large demolition project, and there were several condenser plates. Some were 70-30, some were 90-10, and some were yellow brass. Some had been refurbished after they were built and installed, so the blueprints were incorrect to begin with. And very important to develop trust and to understand what you have. So as we stood over this material and went through it with the Niton and analyzed the material together, it was easy to understand and create trust and understand the value of each of those constituencies, and also understand what was going to be necessary to process that material. Again, we're consumer driven, right? So we need to prepare our products in a form that the consumers demand, whether it's grinding, whether it's torch cutting, whatever it may be, and then we need to package it appropriately. It may be loose, it may be in super sacks, it may be bales, it may be boxes. So again, we are consumer driven. And finally, the most important, the most critical thing that a recycler can provide to the generators and to our customers is risk management. We're the last bastion before material goes into either a recycling stream or a waste stream. We're environmental stewards. Very important. If something gets by us, somebody may get sued, and they're going to go after the people with the deepest pockets. So this is, again, the most important role that we play to make sure that we keep the waste out of the recycling and that things that are exceptions are handled appropriately. You don't want to see mercury fuses or liquid fuses or mercury devices or PCB oil. Even a simple propane tank going into a steel mill can cause an explosion. So again, it's very important to monitor what you have. The better segregation done at the point of generation, the better it is for everybody in the supply chain. But our job is to make sure that it happens appropriately at the end. So thank you very much. With that, I'll turn it over to Sean.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean Spicer. I'm Senior Vice President at Venture Metals. We're based out of Dallas, Texas. We have facilities in Texas, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Arizona, as well as facilities in South Korea. One of the things I want to talk about today is what you, as an investment recovery professional, should be looking for in your recycling partner. Every company in this room is at a different place in their recycling journey. Some people may be on day one, really just trying to look for a way to get started. How do I get value from stuff that I've traditionally been giving away or throwing away? Some people have a very mature, developed program. I would say that most of you are probably somewhere in the middle, and there's always room for improvement. A good way to improve is to have a partner that's there to help you improve. So what's most important to you? Is it accountability? Is it having a transparent business partner that gives you clear, concise pricing, reporting that's easy to do business with? Are you compliance driven? Is sustainability, your environmental, DOT, safety, and data security the most important thing to you? Efficiency or service? Do you have a small footprint and the most important thing to your business is getting material out and not having it sit on the ground, disrupting your operation? Is it value creation? Highest price. I want the highest price and I'm going to do whatever it takes to be able to get to that highest price. Or is it innovation? Data tracking, ESG or sustainability metrics, and easy access to information. Obviously, you want to check as many of these boxes as you can when you're looking for your recycling partner and work with your partner to identify metrics, things that you want to see. We have the data. All of us on this panel have the data. We know what we're recycling. We know what we're buying from you. We know what we're paying. How can we transform that data into something usable for you that you can run up the chain to your team, to your senior leadership, so you can tell your story internally and help build your case for why you need to put more money into the investment recovery department. There are definitely several different types of metal recyclers. Like Greg mentioned, everything is consumer driven. At the end of the day, your material will end up somewhere where they're melting it back down to make a new product. It may switch hands several times before getting to that end consumer. So there are smaller public scrap yards that accept, material from you and I. We can walk up with a valid license, sell our material, get cash on the spot. There are brokers and consultants that don't have physical operations that are solely there to help finance the transaction, find you reputable partners in whatever area you're doing business. There's large processors who are typically the last middleman They're the ones doing heavy processing, getting the material to a mill or foundry spec, and shipping it out globally to make a new product. Then there's mills and foundries who are the final buyer, who are melting down the product to make a new product and get it back into the supply chain. And one important thing to note is that one company can be several of these things. With vertical integration, there are companies that have, check every single one of these boxes. There may be a steel mill that owns recycling facilities, that also have a brokerage division and have yards that are open to the public. How can you maximize value? One of the things that I always say is segregate to the point where it makes sense for your company. There were some talks earlier today. I know Megan with National Grid was speaking about their granulation process. They're essentially making a finished product. There are other companies that throw everything into one large roll-off bin and are counting on their scrap partner to segregate everything for them and report back accurately. I would say that probably a majority are somewhere in between that as well. There is some sort of material segregation occurring. Most likely not a tremendous amount of processing done in this room by the utilities and by the industries themselves. But really at the end of the day, the closer you can get to a finished product, the higher value it is, and the less processing needs to be done to get it to the final consumer. And so you really have to decide with your team, with your senior leadership, what makes the most sense for our company. Do I put in a granulator? Do I put in, some sort of just sortation practices? I like to say start small, but think big. At the very least, we're segregating our bare copper, maybe some high-grade insulated #1 copper. Let's start there. Identify some items that are worth quite a bit of money, that are easy to see visually. You can sort them out, keep them in a secure area, and recoup a significant amount more money just by doing that. So again, you need to get to know your partner. And this goes hand in hand with what Greg said. You need to vet them, go see them, visit them. Anyone that you're looking to do business with should be more than willing to walk you around their facility, show you their operations, show you firsthand what will happen to the material that you're sending them. You want to look for, things in motion. If you go to any of our facilities and you see nothing happening, that's probably not a good sign, because it is constant organized chaos at all of our facilities. Materials moving around, there's forklifts, there's material handlers, there's shears, shredders, granulators, all running as often as possible, because we're not making money if we're not processing material. So we want to get material in, get it processed, and get it out as quickly as possible. And so you should be able to see that process as it's occurring. Where does your material go when it leaves the facility, the recycling facility? I think it's fair to ask for, downstream reporting. Where is this material going? Where is it ending up? What happens to it, once it leaves your facility? How do you actually sort through by mix load of material? If I'm throwing everything in one box, how can I know with any sort of certainty that you're actually sorting out and paying me accordingly for what's in that box? And again, seeing is believing. Again, show all your permits, certification, safety manual. That's something that's pretty standard that most of you likely have in an RFQ process. And again, what are some simple things that we can do operationally to increase the value of the material? The goal for most of you is not to become a full-fledged processor. The goal is to take the current state of your recycling program, make a few tweaks, put some process improvement in place to maximize the value that you can get, and then continually work on that process. And then the last thing I have is, how do you track or report on the environmental impact or sustainability metrics of the material you process? Again, this is what I was talking about with the data that all of us have in this room. If we're scrap processors, we know what you're sending to us, we know what you're recycling, we have the data. How can we transform that data into a usable form for you? What is the impact of that material that we're receiving from your facility? So this is just an example of our sustainability dashboard that we use that shows just a few high-level metrics: total energy saved, barrels of oil equivalent saved, homes heated, emissions avoided, vehicle emission offset, and cubic yardage diverted from landfills. And again, with your partner, let them know what metrics you're interested in, and if the data is there, then you should be able to get to those metrics. Thank you.
Alrighty, so our goal was to take you guys through a whole process here, and I'll be pulling up the end, talking about resilience and sustainability in action. So each of us does everything that's been discussed so far, and this is the last piece as it relates to rounding it out. So what does resilience and sustainability in action and practice look like here? And why does it matter? I'm of the belief that it matters for a few reasons. And what I share with my customers often is it matters because your shareholders care about it. Your shareholders care about your profitability, they care about your revenue potential, they care about your cost savings, and the value that each of you are able to create through your respective departments. Why else does it matter? Because your customers care about it. Your customers are your stakeholders. They care about your local community impact and your engagement. And as a result, they want to know that your suppliers or your vendors care about the same thing. Why else does sustainability and resilience matter as it relates to your partnership with us? Because your leadership teams care about it. They're holding you accountable for ensuring that you have resilient supply chains and that you make sure that material is available for you or accessible in your respective areas. And lastly, why does it matter? Because it matters to you. In talking to several of you, I know that your success is contingent upon the data that you have and the stories that you're able to tell with the data that you have. Sean just shared an example, and I'll share one as well, because I think it ties together. So what are the impacts of metal recycling? And this is often what I share with people, and some of this is a little redundant, but it protects natural resources. By properly handling or recycling your material with producer, it allows manufacturers to create products with sustainable alternatives to cutting trees or mining new material. What else is the impact? It reduces energy usage. So I gave an example of that earlier, and it also helps lower carbon emissions. So oftentimes people say, okay, well, you got sustainable practices, but what does innovation look like? And again, some of this has already been brought up, but for us, we're continuing to innovate and discovering ways metals can be recycled more efficiently. So whether that be using sensors or using machines, heavy equipment that Sean just mentioned, AI is actively been playing a part of my business and our business, whether that be robotics or using eddy current systems. And last but not least, we're always looking at advanced technology to maximize what we're doing in our respective spaces, which essentially benefits you all. So why does sustainability and innovation matters? It allows each of us to deliver more value to each of you in each of your companies. I thought I'd share a couple examples. The title was Sustainability in Action and Practice. And oftentimes people are like, well, what does that mean? In talking to you all, I believe a lot of you are dealing with challenges. You also have demands, and you're also looking to create more value. I believe there's multiple ways that you can go about doing that. One of which I shared with you is a focus on your customers and your stakeholders. I've talked to local utilities directly, and they have said to me that it's important for us to deliver the utility service that we're expected to deliver, which is just the baseline, but it's also important that we're involved in the community. And so that is a part of your sustainability and community in action. And I know it's not just us, but for us, if it's working with a school on back to school drives or sponsoring a school so that teachers have access to STEM-based or recycling education, it's important. And I'm not just sharing this just because, but I think it's important that your recyclers also care about the same thing that you do, which is the community. Why else does it matter to you? I just talked about each of you all wanting data, and you wanting data not just for data's sake, but so that you can go back to your key stakeholders and share what the story is. And again, a little bit of redundancy, but this is an example of a storyboard or a dashboard we provide our customers, whereby we take your tonnage or we take your recycled material and we go back and link it to metrics that matter to you, whether that be energy savings, whether that be emissions reduced, or even looking at your dollar value as cost revenue or cost savings. I'm a visual person. How many of you guys like to see things in action? If it helps you understand. It helps me understand. I shared this at a conference a couple of weeks ago. It's pretty basic. It's a TikTok video. Yep, I said it's a TikTok video. But I think it can help you connect the dots between what happens with the steel. Let's just say, for example, the carbon steel that might come out of your facility and how a new product is made from that material. Oftentimes you're looking and you're like, yeah, we're just getting rid of these assets and surplus, and we have no idea where it's going or what's happening to it. But take a look at this. Oh, lastly, how many of you all cook? How many of you all cook? Use pots and pans to cook? Okay, see what happens here.
I'm inside the Lodge Foundry today to show you how cast iron is made. There are 3 main ingredients in cast iron: recycled steel, pig iron, and recycled castings. Those ingredients are picked up with a magnet and melted in a super hot furnace. That furnace then pours the molten iron into a ladle. We slag that iron to remove impurities and then transfer it across the foundry to this machine, which pours it into molds made of sand. The castings are separated from the sand, and then they run through the shop blast machine to get them extra clean. They're then ground if they need it, and then they're given a wash with soapy water. After that, they're sprayed with oil, and then that oil is baked on at a super high temperature. That's the naturally nonstick seasoning that all Lodge cast iron comes with. We then put labels on them and pack them into boxes where they're sent to retailers all over the country or maybe to your home.
Alrighty, so how many of you knew that some of the cast iron or the iron that you handled could be made into new materials, such as pots? Some of you. I just want you to know most of the material that you move through your facility is then used as material to make new material. If you didn't connect that dot, that's one thing that I want you to walk away from here with. So some questions to consider as we kind of land this plane. Are you aware that the material you handle is used to produce new goods, products, and materials? Kind of like what we just showed. Are you clear on how your surplus assets impact your triple bottom line? I talk to my customers all the time. I said it affects people, planet, and profit. Are you aware of all 3 benefits for you and your organization? Lastly, are you aware that the programs you are managing is at the intersection of recycling, i.e. value creation, and sustainability? Just some things to think about kind of as you're wrapping up here. Lastly, I want to thank each of you all. We're going to move into a Q&A, but in the spirit of transparency, I also wanted to announce that the winner at our booth was Miranda Villapantu for the camera holder that we have. So Miranda, you can meet the South Post Oak team afterwards with the hats, and we'd love to give that to you. And we're going to open it up for questions. Anything that you have for Sean, for Greg, for Andrew, or myself, we're going to open it up. So thank you so much.
I imagine that answer is different for all of us. We're in Los Angeles, so a lot of what we do does get exported. I'll give you an idea. To ship a container from here to Korea is about $200. Ship a container from here, say, to the Midwest could be about $2,000. So the economics are vastly different. Of course, the tariff situation may alter that a little bit. There's been a little bit change in philosophy, I think, but it's probably different and contingent upon where you're located.
I would echo that, and I would remind, so one of the slides I shared when we were kind of teeing it up, from a big picture level, it's about 70% of recycled materials are staying here domestically. And Greg is right, each of our facilities are going to be different, just based on what ports we're near, what rail lines we're near, et cetera. But from a national level, about 70% of the scrap surplus that you have would be kept here domestically. What other questions do you have?
Feel free to talk to us one-on-one after this session. We're happy to answer any questions you had.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to share?
Nothing.
That was too easy.
All righty. If there are no questions, we would love to talk with you all afterwards. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy the end of the conference.